Well, hello, I'm Wendy Rose Williams, and I'm a past life energy healer, and I help people release chronic physical and emotional pain, as well as anxiety and depression, and just shift the hard stuff. I had the privilege of training with Dr. Brian Weiss, among other industry experts, and have created a healing process grounded in hypnotherapy to be able to help you live a happier, healthier life and a life filled with purpose. You can learn more about me at my website, which is wendyrosewilliams.com, and request a complimentary 15-minute phone appointment there. I am so excited to tell you that today is our 2-year anniversary. Gregg and I have just been having so much fun and so appreciate all you listeners. So we're going to be doing a neat recap of the last year because, boy, have things been changing. So I'll turn it over to Gregg, and welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gregg Kirk. You can come reach out to me on my website at greggkirk.com. It's spelled GREGGKIRK.com. I do energy work that involves a number of things: Akashic record readings and past life regression, or not regressions, but past life visualizations and energy block removals and things like that. That you can request a session with me. You can also, on that website in the events section, I run an online group healing circle every Sunday. So you can get information about that and join. It's only $20. We do it every Sunday at noon Eastern time. It's a great place to come and meditate with us. And we have all kinds of experiences, and some of them are amazing, and sometimes it's just a matter of personal healing. So I invite you to that. So today, yes, we did this last year. Wendy and I did. Last year was our 1-year anniversary. We did a recap. We decided we would do the same thing this year because, as Wendy and I were just talking to each other prior to the broadcast, we realized that everybody's busy. You don't always have a chance to watch every single episode of ours. Of course, we do ours about every 2 weeks. And so if you watch any episode, this is a good one. This is kind of like the table of contents or review of what we've done for the last year. And we give you kind of the highlights of each episode. So then you can go to our website, wakingupspiritually.com, and click the broadcast link. And then you can go to that episode that maybe has piqued your curiosity or interest. But we'll go through everything today, and we have some prizes in store for you later. So let me get the presentation up and running here.
Yes, some cool listener appreciation gifts while Gregg's bringing up the PowerPoint for those of you who are looking at this as a visual versus just listening to us as a podcast. And Gregg has included the healing circle to be able to attend that healing circle that he was just mentioning. Healing circles are fantastic because that wonderful group healing energy, and all boats do rise with the tide. So
just having a little bit of technical issue.
That's okay. And also you can visit us on YouTube. We do have Waking Up Spiritually on YouTube. So you're able to just find us in those different ways. And we love to hear your input and your feedback of what is the most important thing going on for you. What do you need help with? And we often design content based on that. So do speak up and let us know what topics and issues are coming up for you.
Okay. Technical problems solved.
All right.
Got our presentation up and running. And just want to remind you that the point of our group, the point of the Waking Up Spiritually idea is to help curious souls make sense of your own personal spiritual awakening symptoms, your paranormal experiences, and your glimpses beyond the veil, to help you make sense of them, to help you learn from them, heal from them, and also expand yourself, your consciousness, and your personal health. So, well, obviously 1 year ago, here's an interesting thing I noticed, Wendy, that last year we did 24 episodes. So we did uninterrupted. We were faithful to doing every single, 2 weeks, every 2 weeks.
Twice a month, the second and the fourth Sunday of the month we're
Right.
here.
So I guess we skipped 3 episodes this time. I don't remember that entirely, but I think there was a vacation involved in there or something. But anyway, we did 21 episodes this last year, and
I'm
one
sure
of
it was an important past life pilgrimage.
right, right, one of the transformative travel, transformational travel episodes probably. Anyway, so yeah, last year May 9th we did our 1 year anniversary episode. That was followed 2 weeks later by our Experiencing Magic and Miracles Part 3. So that was a fun series that Wendy and I did. We earlier in 2021 we did Experiencing Magic and Miracles Parts 1 and 2, and basically it was episodes of Wendy and the crazy things that have happened in Wendy's and my lives. So that we've
The
experienced.
crazy, wonderful things.
Yes, exactly. Um, but also there was something, just a note that I wanted to make. We dedicated that episode to your awesome cat Midnight, who had passed earlier, I think that month or within a week of
He
that.
passed just after Mother's Day, so we're just on in 2 more days we're on the 1 year anniversary of that.
Right, right. But I don't know if you remember that episode in particular, Wendy, but yeah, there was the things that I shared were about some personal experiences I'd had. It was the first time I had ever had any kind of like psychic experience where I was having a dream, and then I had a vision of a friend of mine trying to contact me, and she was wearing glasses and a certain dress. And I remember waking up and I called her on the phone and I said, I had this dream about you. And she said, wow, I was wearing that dress. And I said, but you never worn glasses. And she said, no, I was wearing glasses. I don't ever wear them out of the house. And anyway, it was the first time I ever had kind of like
That's
this
amazing.
thing, but but yeah. So anyway, do you happen to remember what you shared, Wendy, from that one?
I don't in particular, because as you said, it was such a cool series, having done 3 episodes of it, and we've never done that before. So it just really was a good mine to be digging.
Right, and it's one of the things that Wendy and I try to do with this platform here is not to be preachy, and we actually I watched a little bit of last year's episode of the what we did as our retrospective, and we said something similar to that we wanted to bring all of these highfalutin concepts down to earth, and to give you our experiences as well, to humanize all of this, because sometimes we're talking about aliens, we're talking about angels, we're talking about interacting with light beings, out of context that sounds pretty wild, but if within the context that we put it, these are experiences we've had. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have also. So we want to normalize that and not make it scary, but also make it understandable, graspable, tangible, right?
Yes, normalizing is really important, because when we're waking up, everything is so different, and it can be really off-putting. It can cause anxiety. You can feel like you're crazy. You can lose friends and family members, and all that requires support. So that really was the purpose of why we started this podcast.
Exactly. So in June, we did an episode called Journey to Personal Sovereignty. So I know it was a favorite episode of a bunch of our listeners, because we got a lot of comments during the broadcast of it, where a lot of people were saying, preach it, brothers and sisters, speak your truth. But really the idea that was that your sovereignty is about you, not just your own spirituality and your energy, but also physical things in your life. There's some sovereignty traps, things like financial debt, is a sovereignty trap, and just different things to avoid. So we talked about that, and that was one of my more favorite episodes. That was kind of like a blending of the spiritual meeting, the day-to-day life of what you got to just be mindful of.
It's one of my favorite too, Greg, because I had such a journey in that area, because it took me quite a long time to be able to differentiate and to discern between my own energy and other energy. And I didn't realize that that feeling of being more and more weighed down and stressed, and like I was carrying just so much on me. I didn't realize that that was me carrying a lot of other people's energy.
Yeah.
And I just didn't realize what was happening because I didn't at that time have a daily spiritual practice. And once I actually was able to feel my chakras for the first time during a session with a spiritual teacher, that was just mind blowing. And then when she helped me start to clear my energy, I was like, oh my goodness, this is me?
Right.
Me without all the stuff. It just was a really big deal. That was certainly part of what inspired me to train and become a Reiki master and to become a certified spiritual teacher, because I realized so many people needed help with that. And declaring our sovereignty, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So sometimes I help people get their own power wand during their session. We go into a crystal cave, and that's been a big deal for a couple of people. They're like, oh my goodness, I feel so much more calm and complete and powerful in a very peaceful way, a very peaceful, loving way. So, yes, a favorite episode.
Yeah, yeah. So then later in July of 2021, we did Connecting with Your Guides. So that was one where I remember that one. We had some graphics about kind of like the spiritual layout of how things are. You've got your past lives, you've got your guides who are around you, and then you've got your oversoul, which is, your guide number one. So your guides can consist of ancestral beings. Some of them you recognize, like your grandfathers and grandmothers and great grandfathers and mothers, and or also ancestral ones that you've never met in this lifetime, plus light beings and angels and other healing beings. And but your number one guide is your oversoul, your higher self. Is, those two terms are interchangeable in my world. We had a really good graphic showing how that looked. But yeah, do you remember that episode, Wendy?
I do, because that is another area where people can just really struggle and feel very alone and abandoned and just beaten down and exhausted. And when you're able to experience that unconditional love of your guides and start to tune into that wisdom and get some help and learn how to spiritually surrender, so you can also have some sense of humor and say, oh my goodness, this is above my pay grade. I need to turn this over to my guides. Gregg and I, for instance, we were having unusual, real technical difficulties as we tried to start today. And we don't normally connect 15 minutes before the podcast, but today we did. And that's because our guides needed to help us really get the connectivity going.
Yeah.
So I just surrendered it to the guides, and it's just a really big deal. One of the things I mentioned in that episode was do follow your instinct, do follow your intuition, even if it seems a little bit weird or wacky, because that's your higher self and your guides trying to help you. And I didn't have any idea at the time of how to connect with my guides, but I was interested. I wanted to, and I had heard about oracle cards, and I'd actually found them and put them in my cart. I found them online, and it was the Healing with the Angels cards. And for some reason, I just didn't feel like spending the $20, or I just pulled back. So it's literally sitting there in my cart. And I was so meant to have those cards and start working with them to be able to connect with my guides, that amazingly, one of my best friends heard this psychically. She went and purchased the cards for me and delivered them and left them at my front door when I was at work. And I
Wow.
about fell over when I opened this amazing, unexpected gift from her because there are thousands of Oracle card decks. And she picked out with no conversation between us at all. We'd never talked about Oracle cards or connecting with our guides. But pay attention because
Wow.
people may be trying to help you in the physical because it's that amazing manifestation of the divine trying to help you. So for heaven's sakes, just when you when you go through a process like that, just go ahead and get the cards. Go ahead and take the step. But it was an even more beautiful experience because of the way it played out because it had that
Yeah,
extra layer to it.
that is so cool. Well, later in July, we did, what's funny because the next episode is about removing resistance to your spiritual growth. So,
That was an example of me resisting. I'm not going to
right,
buy these cards. Oh, I think I'm supposed to buy these cards.
right, right. But, so we talked about the different kinds of blocks you can have to your spiritual growth, the mental, emotional, and energetic blocks. And unfortunately, some of the energetic blocks can be from entities and other, things that might need to be removed from your field. But, like Wendy just did a perfect illustration of a mental block. She was concerned about spending the $20. And so that was a bit of a block she had, but how amazing that she has a friend who's so in tune with her that she took care of it for her. But emotional blocks, trauma, that's a huge thing. Winnie and I, in our practices, we deal with people who have trauma, not just in this lifetime, which is the loudest form of trauma, I believe, but trauma is in other lifetimes, and it's a big deal. We just talked about it in the online group healing circle a few hours ago. That it seems to be a thing going on right now, because I just did a session with a woman yesterday, and then a woman in our group mentioned this exact same thing, where her guides were saying to her that it's really important for us to get rid of all the blocks and the traumas from our other lives, so that basically the chi life force can flow through all of us, so then we can become complete. I think it's really important. So yes, removing all resistance to spiritual growth is important, and the blocks are the biggest resistance probably out there.
Right. And because there's so many types of energetic blocks, emotional blocks, and it definitely can be showing up as physical issues. And there's the self-limiting beliefs. So yes, it is a big deal. And we can't get sovereign. We can't just really move into that place of self-love and self-respect and self-confidence and live our purpose until we do our best to remove those blocks. And I certainly was not able to do that alone. I have worked with so many different types of healers and been really, really blessed in that area. And that's going to be an upcoming episode. We're going to talk about different types of healing modalities. So.
Okay, so on 8/8/21, we did a special episode for the Lionsgate portal, which is something that comes around not very often. But that was the specific day, August 8th, 2021. We discussed Lionsgate portal. We did a special meditation as well. So it was a time of strong manifestation, because there's a well, Wendy, you could probably explain it.
It's a heart opening. The
Yeah.
Lionsgate portal opens once a year. It's strongest on August 8th. You can feel it a few days before and a few days after. And I had a crazy, crazy dream with my first big Lionsgate portal heart opening, which to make it funny and mundane, in the dream, I was in the Costco parking lot, out running an errand in the dream. And all of a sudden, after I'd parked my car and it was my youngest daughter and I were getting out, and all of a sudden I'm looking at this big male lion in the dream. And we just like took the measure of each other. It's like, I looked really into his eyes and he really looked into mine. And I'm like, I can just move my way around him this feels good. This feels amazing. I'm, respecting him. And I could just feel my heart opening, and then continued walking onto the store in the dream. And in the dream, my daughter had fallen back a little bit. She was like checking something on her phone. She was a high schooler at the time. And all of a sudden I thought, oh my gosh, is she okay? Because there may be another lion, since I just saw this huge male lion. And I went back for her in the parking lot back toward our car. And she was wrestling on the ground with this female lioness. And she was just in this full, and I'm like watching it in horror. I mean, I'm her mother and I'm seeing my child, I'm like, oh my goodness, is this a fight to the death? And I could hear my guide say, send her love and watch, but don't interfere, because it was her heart opening, and she had to do the work. So I thought that dream was just so amazing and so symbolic.
Mhm. Yeah. I think you
All that
mentioned
while shopping at Costco.
you shared that story in that episode, I believe, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, so then in September we did past life healings. That was one of my favorite episodes because I described one of the most amazing experiences that I've ever had during a healing is when we could look back and track a past life that came up through historic documents. So go check that episode out on wakingupspiritually.com. I have, the graphics and the pictures and the paintings of an actual Prussian prince that came through in one of the sessions. And, I didn't know anything about this guy, and there's all this drama around it. It's amazing. So I'll just, as briefly as I can tell you about it, but I was just doing a regular session with somebody, and it's a woman, and I saw her as a Prussian prince. And then I saw that the prince had a same-sex relationship with another man. The king didn't like this, and he hated it, and I guess he wanted his son to be more manly, so he sent his son away from his friend, his mate, his partner, off into military, into battle and everything, and he excelled at. He got really good, became a military commander, came back, continued the relationship with this other man who he was deeply in love with. It was a star-crossed relationship. Well, the father, what happened was then they decided they were going to abscond. They were going to leave. They were going to leave to England, which was a rival of Prussia. And so basically they were betraying the father, and they were going to leave. They captured him, and the other man was executed in front of Frederick II, which is the Prussian prince, who was forgiven by his father. But just how tragic this whole thing was. So this all played out through when I'm doing a session. I see it in kind of like dreams, it's like a dream to me. I see it. Sometimes the visuals are very clear, and sometimes they're very kind of misty and dreamy. But anyway, when it was over, I said to the woman, this was so distinct. This information is so
specific.
So specific and unique that, let's look it up. And within minutes, I'd gone onto Wikipedia, and I was pulling down pictures of this guy. And there, I believe there's a British TV show that was made about this, this actual story, or a musical was made out. I mean, it's incredible. So please check that episode out. That was amazing. And let's see. Yeah. And Wendy, I don't know if you remember what you presented on that time, but we both presented on past life healings, through our own personal experiences. Does any of that ring a bell to you?
Yes. Well, there's so many. I just want to comment again, the emotional and the physical and the mental healing that can come through. It just changes your life.
Right. That's a big trauma, what I just described there, right?
Absolutely. And I had a physical healing of my right foot, which related to a past parallel life. And I had to have surgery twice on my right foot. And the podiatrist was so puzzled. And he's like, what have you done to your foot? Because you've got, did you injure it? Is this a sports injury? Did you fall? What happened? Because you've got two dislocated toes. And it was past life energy because I just was really struggling with my identity in a past life. And my guide said to me, you need to look for this certain photo that you'll be able to Google and find. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I was a little bit hesitant. And so I just cleared my energy and meditated and prayed and said, okay, I'm Googling with the guides here. Show me that photo right away. I don't want to be on this long journey and, getting things all confused. If I'm understanding you correctly, that a past life caused the problems and all the issues I've had with my right foot, show me this picture you're talking about. And I found it immediately. And it was a lifetime where I had played professional baseball and had this very, very wide batting stance with the left leg way ahead of the right leg, and the right toes were dug into the sand. And just having repetitively done that thousands and thousands of times for years and years and years, back in the day when cleats and sports equipment was not very good. Isn't that something to consider, that my seeing that photo was part of me accepting that that past life indeed really was mine. It was not an ego trick.
Right.
And there was the photographic evidence. And I cannot tell you how much lighter and better I felt, and how much better my foot is doing now. And that's a big deal because our mobility is a big deal.
Mhm.
So I was really grateful that I did listen, and my guides were able to help with a past life healing by showing me a photo of myself.
That's
I think it
awesome.
was from like the 1940s or 1950s,
Mhm.
in that past parallel life.
Right, right. Nice. So we went from past life healings to the next episode was on what is channeling. So, we're talking about how you can come by information that's not limited by time or space, how information just comes to you intuitively in big chunks, sometimes in vivid detail, like we just described. Um, I gave a little information. There's a scientist named Rupert Sheldrake who has actually studied this, and he's come up with 4,500 cases of actual information that's come through a channel that the person who received it, there's no way, had no prior information or knowledge of the information. So that's fascinating. Wendy and I are, of course, both fascinated by the idea of channeling, and yeah.
Yes, and it's a very misunderstood topic. A lot of people are worried and concerned. Well, what is channeling, and who are you channeling, and what's going on? So we just worked to give a structure to that so that people can more understand what it really is, and also just good spiritual practices around it, because we don't want to be channeling this random being that goes on by and might be trickster energy.
Right.
It doesn't happen that often, but why would you not want to align yourself with divine source, with divine love, and just that highest beings of light and energy. And many of us who do channel have specific soul contracts or agreements with lovely ascended masters or angels or beings of light. And we planned it before we were born. So, that's just a big deal when we can learn that and be specifically channeling that wonderful being of light.
So the next episode, The Great Awakening, that was one of my favorite episodes as well, where we talked about this idea of, the reason we started our channel here, or our broadcast and our Facebook page and our website, Waking Up Spiritually, is because so many people were doing it at once. The term has become the Great Awakening. We're experiencing the Great Awakening. So we described a number of things there, and one of my favorite things is of course, doing what we've set out to do here is to take, the stuff that's ineffable and try to bring it down to earth. So one of the interesting things that I mentioned was Dr. David Hawkins. He wrote his book, Power versus Force, several years ago, and he was able to map human consciousness. And he basically pointed out that after doing a bunch of his own channeling and so forth, and using muscle testing to test the veracity of it, that human consciousness across the globe had risen to a point in 1992 where it's continued to rise, of, where basically that was the inflection point of when man started to move out of the animal mind, the tribal mindset, the mindset of what he calls power, where you're trying to exert dominion and dominance over other beings, where you realize you're in a collective and you're trying to help other people, and that cooperation is a better way for life sustainability than every
Moving
man for
out of
himself. Or
moving out of that scarcity and that poverty consciousness and
survival of the
uplifting.
fittest kind of old world programming. So 1992, was the year that we started to rise. So that was I remember that was fun. That was cool. So after the Great Awakening, then Wendy and I we did two episodes, one on our favorite spiritual books, and then we did another one on healing crystals, which basically, so the spiritual books we tried to set a limit for ourselves. I think we tried to give like our 10 favorite books.
Top 10.
we couldn't stick to it. We still gave our top 10 favorite books, but then we added, and here's some honorable mentions. But we had some overlap. Like we both liked Brian Weiss. What else? That's the one I can remember. But
there was a Dolores Cannon one that was on both our lists. Yeah. Because people may, you wouldn't have any way of knowing this, but Gregg and I, we agree on the topic, and then we're meditating and working with our guides to get to that point. And then one of us starts the PowerPoint and then, doesn't necessarily see the other person's slides. Like if I've sent it off to Gregg, I don't see his slides before we start.
Right.
So it's just kind of neat how the guides like blend and kind of like dance the energy back and forth and bring it back in together. So I just surrender that to them because they are so much better at it than we can ever be, and it's so much less effort. Once you realize that you don't have to like overly plan these things, it's pretty magical.
It is. Yeah. I mean, to further that point, Wendy and I, we were just talking about it today, again, in that 15-minute period when all hell was breaking loose, technically. But when we were finally able to converse, I said to her, I've always enjoyed doing these episodes with her. When we first got going, I thought, how are we going to come up with topics, because I think this is a kind of rigorous schedule every 2 weeks, So I thought, how are we going to come? I didn't know how we were going to come up with, half a year's worth of topics, but we've just surrendered everything up. We've relied on our intuition, but even further, there's no planning other than the deck, other than we'll set up a topic idea and we'll put the deck together, but, we're not planning any of this. So what you see is what you get when we hit record and or broadcast on this channel. It's just, this is us in real time.
Most podcasts are edited, and we made a conscious decision that we were going to be brave,
right?
And no editing. And we are both channels, so we just both opened to our guides and said, what What messages do you want to convey, on this certain topic that we're selecting together?
We've only had two episodes. I think they happened last year, where one of them, the power went out on my laptop because didn't have it plugged in. So we were doing an extra long episode on aliens, and my computer just shut down in the middle of it, and somehow Zoom kept going, and Wendy kept going.
Oh, that is just also alien-like.
Right, I know. Alien
Of
interference.
course it was during that episode. That's
Right.
just funny.
Right. But then there was another time, I don't know if you remember, but we started the episode and I don't know what happened. It didn't get recorded or something. We had to redo it. So it was funny because we kept referring back to it. I would say something exactly like I just said the hour before where it wasn't recorded properly. It was an inside joke.
The Pete and repeat episode.
Yeah, right. Well, speaking of, yeah, so we did it. Wendy and I did a whole episode in late November on healing crystals. So it was kind of like the book episode, but we talked about our favorite crystals, and we talked about proper crystals or suggested crystals to use on your chakras if you want to. But, we just talked about the ones that we really liked. And then in December, 12, 12, 21. How about that for numerology? We revisited the idea of doing an alien episode because of what happened the year before. We still had different things to talk about, but that was another good episode. I just remember, Wendy, you have plenty to talk about with your alien interactions.
That was a big journey for me too, because it started from a very unwanted, very low vibration, negative place for me. It was a sovereignty issue for me. And moving out of that victim and martyr place, that I didn't realize how deeply I had sunk into that. Clearly I didn't have my power wand. I just wasn't finding ways to take care of myself and stand up for myself. So I had a lot of issues in that area. And then to go all the way to the place where it got to a place where it was neutral. It was like, okay, I can hold my own. And this is just reality for me, is that there's beings from all different planets and all different dimensions. And guess what? It's not us and them, because I absolutely over time started remembering and realized, oh my gosh, I'm a starseed. I've spent time on other planets, and that's making more sense now of why I've had such issues in this area, because I just had a lot of that energy and a lot of those experiences. And then to have it go all the way to full circle, where I was absolutely blessed with a major psychic surgery while I was sleeping in an area of something I really needed help with, by an off-planet psychic surgeon, by an alien. And if you had told me like 5 years before, oh, you'll be happily, having and asking for and wanting an, I would have been like, you've got to be kidding.
Right.
So there was such a journey in that area, which was a big part of healing and accepting myself and all those different aspects of myself.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so then the day after Christmas on 2021, we did an episode on the power of divine love. So we were defining that as, not romantic love. This is the unconditional love that comes from Source. And it is the pure combination of love plus wisdom plus power. And so I remember I created a triangle graphic, and we talked about what happens when you don't have all three of them together. So, power plus love is.
Well, three-legged stools don't stand. Three-legged stools always fall over.
That can be wonky, and power, power and wisdom can be without love. We see a lot of that happening in the world today. And then anyway, but yeah, power, love, and wisdom, that's the way to go. And we talked about how healing it is not just on a personal level, but for humanity and through the planet. And that was, that was a good one. The next episode we did, the beginning of the year, was a suggestion Wendy made. That was the first time we actually interviewed a guest offline, not during the live broadcast. Her name is Debbie Buss, and she's from the UK. And Wendy, I believe you worked with her before, right?
Yes, I've had several wonderful sessions with her. She's just really, really talented at the information she brings forth, because it's not just about the numbers and where the planet is, it's that intuitive ability to really read and interpret the information. So I've had sessions with her, she's had sessions with me, and I just really appreciated she was able to give us kind of a highlight of what was coming for the year with the planetary astrology, because there's so many different types of astrology. There's not just your personal, there's astrology that's country specific, that's planetary specific, and also that numerology. So yes, that was a fun, interesting episode.
My big takeaway from it was something she said about Pluto return, which I had not known before, and then came into play a few months into this year, where all of a sudden I started getting these Mercury in retrograde like feelings, and Mercury wasn't in retrograde. These feelings of things not being out of balance, things going wrong, me being clumsy, people losing their tempers more frequently during certain periods of time. It was because Pluto had gone into return. It's a time, happens every 248 years, and it's a time when structures fall, structures that don't serve anymore. So things like the Roman Empire has fallen, the British Empire has fallen. These things happen, in this cycle, and it on the outset it looks like disaster, things falling, cataclysmic, but it's actually always for the better. So that opened my eyes to something I had not known before. So
yes.
thanks to Debbie for that.
I feel a lot of spiritual energy. It's going down both my sides. It's in both my hips. It's going down my spine as you say that, because the United States has not experienced a Pluto return before.
Right.
So, and we just have to remember that things when they fall apart, sometimes things have to fall apart to come together.
Right.
And yes, there can be a real messy middle. And I feel like we've been in a messy middle, and we've got more messy middle to go through. So we've just got to do our own work, and just also be really kind to one another, and just keep lifting each other up as we go through that.
Right. Well, the next episode we did later in January was a listener suggestion. Somebody who reached out to me and said, you guys have done a lot of episodes. Can you kind of give me, a synopsis of everything that you did, or just like, can you, instead of giving me a whole hour's worth of one topic, can you give me just like a
highlight reel?
Highlight reel, exactly. It's kind of like what we're doing here, but she wanted it more or less. I said, so are you talking about like a spiritual survival guide? She said, yes, that would be good. So that's basically what we did. So Wendy and I broke down a number of things, practices that we do, different tools that we like. It was, and we talked about a couple of books that we liked, crystals, our favorite crystals, all those kinds of things that we had referred to in prior years, but we kind of broke it down into a little kit. So do you have any memories of that episode?
My memory was, I was really impressed. I thought it was a fantastic suggestion.
Yeah.
And you took the lead on that, Gregg, because I was like, oh my goodness, I can't think how to encapsulate that and boil that down. But you did that really powerfully. And then I was able to follow your lead and add to it once I saw how you'd started the PowerPoint with it.
Yeah,
so,
that felt pretty
my
effortless.
hats off to you for that one.
Thank you. Well, the next one was one that just came to me. Wendy and I were talking after that episode. We were like, okay, what's the next one going to be about? And I said, what about the idea of death and dying, and just how we can do better, as humans? Death and dying, the experience in most Western parts of, Western civilization, especially the United States, it's not fun. No, people make it a miserable experience. The dying process, the grieving process, funerals, some cultures don't. I mean, and there are some celebrations of life, that pop up during funerary services or, memorials, but we wanted to really hit this topic on how can we do better? How can we make this a more beautiful experience? And that was our goal. I think we did a fairly decent job. And I think I had a feeling like, we're talking about this stuff. Some people are going to be so entrenched in the culture, they're going to get mad at us, but nobody did. That's good. That's good.
Well, grief is very personal, and grief recovery, it's not a straight line. Going through those 5 stages that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross so eloquently laid out. It's not a straight line to get all the way to that acceptance. It's like we go back and forth with the anger and the denial and same
Bargaining.
thing. Yeah, the bargaining. Same thing with death of a relationship that you really cared about, or a career, or something else ending. It's not just the physical death. So
Right.
yes, so we tried to bring some uplift to that, just some other perspectives to consider, because again, want to be so respectful of what people's experience is, and just try and provide some comfort.
Right. So this next episode that we did in February, at the end of February, excuse me, was something Wendy and I at this point had decided, let's look back at our metrics. In other words, let's look at our web traffic, let's look at our podcast traffic, and let's look at our video traffic to see what are the favorite topics that our listeners and viewers are digesting or engaging in, and then maybe come up with a topic. So we found out that past life stuff seemed to be popular, and connecting with your guides or finding out about your guides seemed to be popular. So we combined the two, past life
Right.
healing with your guides, and we had plenty to say about that.
Right.
I remember sharing the stories of something that I didn't know was a possibility, that I had 2 patients of mine, and they came in the same day, which was crazy. For in-person sessions, we did an energy session. The first person came in, and his guide showed me that he had a past life as a tree, and he was very happy being a tree. And in fact, he was so happy being a tree, he missed his life as being a tree, and he had a bad case of psoriasis. That's why he came, for the healing sessions. And his guide said, he is trying to become a tree. He's trying to grow bark on his skin. That's what the psoriasis is. And he needs to get over that. He needs to embrace his life now. And even though it's great that he liked his life as a tree. So anyway, when that was over, then a woman came in holding a crystal, and she said, do you mind if we bring this crystal as a part of the session? I said, absolutely. Within minutes, her guides are saying she used to be a crystal in a past life. And not only that, but the crystal that's right there next to her leg is a piece of her.
It was blow Gregg's mind day.
It was. I didn't know. I had
open your belief system.
Wide open. I didn't know any of these things were possibilities. So that was pretty crazy. Do you remember that episode, Wendy?
I do. I was just so glad that we combined those 2 topics. Just as I was looking at the metrics, I could just hear my guides say, here's what you need to do past life healings with your guides. And for instance, I have a beautiful wooden carved Buddha in my great room. It's maybe 12 inches tall. And it came to me in a pretty unique way, because clearly my guides wanted me to have it. And friends had a spiritual store, and they had handpicked items overseas. And after having this business for a couple of years, they were having a going out of business sale, and they lived in another state. And I had never purchased anything from them, but I just like woke up here and you need to look at their website and look in the sales section. So I'm like, okay. So I did, and I saw this beautiful Buddha, and even with like shipping included, it was just over $100, which was just an incredible price. And there was only one. And I contacted them and said, is that still available? I see it on your website. And they said, that's so interesting because we've had that sale fall through like 2 times. And we had a feeling that that Buddha was waiting for someone. And it seems like you're that someone.
Mhm.
So I purchased it. It arrived in perfect condition. And I put it in my great room. And a friend was visiting, who's just very wonderfully psychic. She's a spiritual teacher, an amazing past life reader. And she looked at it and she said, oh, you've got your tree back. That Buddha was carved from a tree where you spent just decades sitting underneath meditating. You've got your Buddha back from that tree. I'm like, wait a minute. You're telling me that that's the actual wood from a tree where I was in a past life? She's
Wow.
like, yes. And she's like, how did you get that? It seems like your guides had to work kind of hard to get you, that Buddha back to you physically, like the story of the crystal.
Right. Wow. Yeah, because the other story about the crystal had a supernatural, story about it unto itself. So when I said all this to the woman as she got up off the table, I thought it was going to blow her mind. She said, "No, I knew it. I didn't want to say anything to you. I wanted to see if you knew." And she
Oh,
said, "Oh
wow.
yeah, yeah."
What
So
validation back and forth between the two of you. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And then she told me the story of how she came by the crystal, which was I don't know, I guess a friend of hers told her about this. It's really odd but cool crystal shop out in the woods near where she lived. And she said, Greg, they had crystals there. I don't even know how they were so big. I don't even know how they got them in the shop. It wasn't very big, but she got the most amazing crystals she's ever gotten, including this one in particular that, literally just like spoke to her. Then, one day she and her friend were driving to the shop and they drove by and they were like, where is it? Like, no sign of it. Like it was gone, evaporated. Like, no, the building wasn't there anymore, nothing. And then they both looked at each other like, that was wow. That shop was just there for a
Wow.
certain period of time, and there's no explaining any of that. So that's
That's
where she got that crystal.
amazing. I
Right.
feel that energy down my spine and down both my arms and down my hips and legs. It's like, oh yeah, that
Yeah,
one's got some spiritual energy to it. Oh my goodness.
absolutely. Wild stuff. So, hey, I love this stuff. I love telling these stories. I love experiencing it. So, again, that's why we're here to normalize this stuff. We're not off our rockers. We are here having these experiences, and this wasn't me. I'm just relating, well, through the energy session, but I'm just relating the wild stuff that happened to this other woman. Anyway,
Well, it's
um,
important, just you ground and clear your energy and you run things through your discernment. I mean, you
right,
just have to discern what's true and what's right for you. But being able to do so with a wider belief system it's just a really powerful, happy place to be.
right. Well, Wendy, in March of 2020, we did an episode on parallel lives. I know you had a lot to relate about that one. Do you remember that episode?
Yes, just because I myself have had some really amazing parallel lives, and I didn't know that was a thing. 10 years ago, I was just starting to wake up and learn what past lives were, and then to learn that there can be a parallel or simultaneous life. That was just a really, really big deal. And that with the concept of our soul, our higher self having so much beautiful spiritual energy, that there's more than enough to, there's always some of it at home, up with the light, up with source love, heaven, the universe, whatever your belief system is, proper terms for you, your favorite terms. to fit your belief system, but that we can incarnate into more than one body or more than one life form at the same time to have more experiences and learn more and progress more. That took me a while to understand that. And several, it kept coming through in meditation, and my guides kept trying to tell me, and I was like, oh, this isn't making sense to me. And I was being all sequential about it. I was trying to list my different lives. And it's like, well, I must not have this year right because that's at the same time as this other life. But again, like being shown the contrast of two writer past lives in the 1800s, for example, and very different lives. So one's married, they're both female, but one's married, one's single, one never has a thing published, but just loves her life and has a fantastic time and wrote like 50 books. And the other ends up having a lot of actually commercial success and becomes famous, and her books are still in print. So, just very, very different experiences, but both writers. And to have those be parallel lives, and then your soul goes back on home and you just compare all the notes because you've experienced the real contrast. So yeah, I encourage you, if you want to learn more about that topic. It was a fun one.
It was. So now we're getting into the more recent episodes. We did one end of March just recently called What's Your Role in a Chaotic World? This was kind of like another listener prompted topic because of just everything that's been going on, everything from wars to diseases, affecting the globe. What should we be doing? Should we be taking to the streets? Should we be praying more? What should we be doing? And I pulled a lot of information from the channeling that's been going on in the online group healing circles, which, the main directive there is, listen, there's the law of, kinetic force. Newton's second law of thermodynamics is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the history books is full of, if, one force goes and fights another force and the other force fights back, what happens? A lot of people die, and there's a cycle of violence. There's a cycle of revenge. There's, how can we avoid that? How can we avoid that kind of behavior? So basically we talked about that, and the idea of group consciousness as well. If you're doing peace meditations, love meditations, it's one thing for you to do that on your own and to pray or to do your own, love meditation. But if you do it with 1,000 more people, it's so powerful. And there are statistics, scientific studies that have been done that your crime rate goes down, violence goes down. There's the answer. So
literally raised the vibration, literally,
right,
in a measurable way.
Yeah. So just go check that episode out. It's still relevant and valid. So the next one we did is now the most popular podcast Wendy and I have. It's called The Construct of Time. I thought it was going to be a little too heady, a little too technical, but people love it. I'm glad. I enjoy this kind of stuff too, where we talked about, basically experiencing linear time here on Earth, but outside of the veil, there's no time. There's no past, present, and future. And I did a little bit of research from the Law of One, and the raw beings talk about the difference between time, space, and space time. Space time being the here and now on Earth, and time, space being outside of that. And so that was another favorite episode of mine, and also of the podcast listeners.
Mm-hmm. Yes, me too, because of course, being a past life regressionist, time is, in all the different ways of looking at it, is really a big thing. And we did get into some of the, pieces of time travel and,
right.
Whether that's with or without a body. One of my friends just texted me yesterday. I'd recommended the TV program Timeless. to her, and because there's just there's so many good ones. Science fiction does a good job with it, and I don't think it is science fiction. I think it's people have some memories of things that are possible. So it's why there's so much interest in the time travel and the travelers and all that sort of thing.
Right. Well, the last episode you and I have done, Wendy, up to this one was the Akashic Records, and now that's like number 2 or number 3 on the podcast as well. So people really enjoyed that. The idea that there is a compendium of all time experiences of humanity and the other beings on Earth that is accessible, outside of time space. And we went into detail on that.
Yes, and I love that topic, that place of all knowledge, and it's one of my favorite parts of client sessions is to take people there during their past life regression, and we ask to have their book of life brought forward for them, and for their guide to answer the important questions that they have that they submit before session. So it's just a big deal, and a lot of people just you can just hear them breathe a sigh of relief that they've got this big, amazing. A lot of them say, "Oh, there's so much light coming up from it," or "I didn't expect it was going to be such a tome. It was going to be so fantastically big. I just feel better knowing that because it means I've had all these experiences, and I can, let go of the perfectionism or let go of whatever." And a lot of people say, "Oh, it's so beautiful. There's like gold edged. I can see the gilt edging on the pages on the outside of the book." And I worked at home. My belief is when we're not incarnated, when we're not in a body, and when we're at home, that we don't just rest and heal and relax. That's very important, but we do things too. We've got jobs. We're not just floating on a cloud eating bonbons. So I worked in the Akashic Records for eons. So it's just so much fun for me because avid reader and writer now, and with past life regression and future life progressions, because that book goes both ways. Because as we know, time is really, really continuous. It's not a line, it's more of a loop or a spiral because everything's happening now, because that takes us more into the quantum understanding of it. So yes, that was a lot of fun. But I was just so thrilled to find out, oh, how cool, that's my job at home.
Right. Well, that was it. That was a year's worth of episodes.
Yes.
So fun.
Yes.
And so just a quick slide to show you what things look like, most popular topics. On our website, connecting to your spirit guides, discovering past lives, and soul groups, soulmates, and soul contracts are still very popular. But podcasts, The Construct of Time, the Transformational Travel episode Wendy and I did more than a year ago, and the Akashic Records. And then on YouTube, Discovering Past Lives, Channeled Messages from the Guides, and Breaking Cycles That No Longer Serve are the most popular videos.
This is a nice way to cherry pick if you're new to the podcast. I mean, certainly, follow your intuition of what looks interesting and fun for you. But if you're not quite sure, where to go, this is what's been appealing to people.
Right. So, Wendy, do you have something to tell the audience?
Yes, absolutely. So we just so love and appreciate that we have the opportunity to talk with you twice a month and to do this work together. So wanted to offer some listener appreciation gifts. So I'm going to be doing a 30-minute workshop on Meet Your Spirit Guide. It'll be June 4th at 10 a.m. Pacific. And please go to my website, wendyrosewilliams.com. The last tab is the Contact Me, and you can just sign up there for this complimentary Zoom workshop. And my second book, the Flow One, Plymouth Plantation, the prequel, which is historic fiction, it is just $1.99 on Kindle today, which is Mother's Day in the US and Canada and some other countries. So you're so welcome to download a copy and learn why you probably don't want to become a ghost. And what all the experiences were there with that soulmate story. And also I'm offering 2 free audiobook copies of my first book, which is nonfiction, Regression Healing 1, The Huntsman, the Lord High Mayor, and the World War II Soldier, and 2 audiobook copies. So those can be sent to anyone, anywhere. So just via email. And I've got the description included here on the PowerPoint, or you can simply look on Amazon. So please enter the raffle by next Friday, which is May 13th at noon Pacific, via my website, if you would like to get an audiobook copy. And I will be awarding those prizes May 13th, next Friday.
Great. So I've got something for you too. I'm going to give away free books or free admission to my weekly online group healing circles for the first 3 people who private messages me. So through either Facebook, or you can, I'll take texts, I'll take an email, anything. Anybody who reaches out to me first would either like a free admission to the online group healing circle, or you would like a copy of my book, The Gratitude Curve, that I published almost exactly 4 years ago, just a couple days ago. So it's just for those of you who don't know, it's basically my autobiography, or my memoir of what I went through, how I, went through my spiritual awakening, but it was through about a 10 to 12 year struggle through Lyme disease. And so I just describe all the details there, go into details about all the suffering I went through, but then how I came out on the other side, and then how I maintained remission and took it even further. So,
well, reaching personal empowerment, I mean, it's right there on the cover. It's a fantastic book, and it includes a chapter of the past life regression session that Gregg did with me. So I really appreciated being honored that way. It was just so cool to hear the client's version of what happened. So it's neat.
Well, we'll see you all in a couple of weeks.
Yes, please join us on May 22nd. We'll be back live at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And you can join us live in our Facebook group, which is called Waking Up Spiritually. And you can also subscribe to us on YouTube if you prefer to listen to your podcasts, or see visual podcasts like that on YouTube. And please rate and review us on Apple iTunes and your other podcast app, your favorite podcast app, because that just helps people find us, so that we can just be in a community together and help one another. And you can visit Gregg at his website, which is Gregg, Kirk, KIRK.com, or me at my website, which is WendyRoseWilliams.com. So thank you so much, and a warm, happy Mother's Day to the mothers in the group. Bye now.
All in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.